Hello and welcome to another episode of MetalCast from Metal Coffee Shop. My name is Karen Edwards, and today's conversation is going to be very exciting because we are going to be talking to Clinton Benn of CMB Erectors, and they are celebrating their 10-year anniversary. So we're going to dive in and hear his story and get to know CMB Erectors and Clinton a little bit better today. Clinton, welcome to MetalCast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so go ahead and introduce yourself to those listening. Tell us a little bit about you and who you are.
So my name is Clinton Benn. I'm a 12-year MBSC journeyman, the owner of Caliber Metal Building Erectors in Brantford, Ontario.
All right. So let's talk about, 10 years. Congratulations. That's a
Thank
big
you.
milestone to hit when starting your own company. So I want to go back and talk a little bit about why you wanted to start your company and how you figured out your niche.
Well, I wasn't sure that I wanted a company per se. At the beginning, I had thought about it for some time while being on the tools, working for other erectors over the years, and no opportunity had yet presented until about 2016 when my job changed and the economy changed. And I decided to leave Alberta, where I'd been working for 5 years, and come back to Ontario and take a look at the market here. That's when I recognized that there might be a gap that's formed in the time that I'm gone, and that perhaps just going back into work on the tools as a foreman or something like that perhaps wasn't exactly what I wanted to do first, and maybe take a shot at getting out there on my own.
So you specialize in mid-size commercial, agricultural, recreational building space. Why has that been so successful for your company? And you looked at it and said, "Hey, there's a need here, and I think I can fill that need."
Yeah, most certainly. So when I came back from Alberta, I'd obviously been working on large scale oil and gas sector type stuff out there. So returning into the commercial market in Ontario, it's a bit of a different animal. So I kind of went back to what I knew, looking around at the companies I'd worked for before, seeing what kind of things they were engaged in at the time. And it started to become very evident to me that all these companies that I had worked for previously, as I was coming up and apprenticing and training, had all grown significantly. There were much larger firms operating that at once were 25, 30 guys are now operating at 80, 90 guys, 100 guys. And it was very clear to me that where did the companies go that were of the size when I left them? And there must be an entire subset of customers, clients, subcontractors, general contractors who still require these services. And how is this portion of the industry, being serviced?
Yeah. So identifying that opportunity and taking advantage of it was how you got where you are today. But let's talk about what that looked like in the beginning.
So in the beginning, getting started, it's like, okay, it's a matter of putting together a couple of guys, a crew, trucks, and figuring out where to get the work. Okay, sounds easy enough. That portion, although difficult up front, in the end isn't the actual extreme difficulty. That's what you've been doing the entire time. Whether you're a foreman, a lead hand, an installer on a crew, you've been showing up to a job site, bolting up buildings, roofs, walls, the whole thing. So transitioning to being the president or the owner of a company engaging in the identical activities, that's not the real turning point. The real turning point comes from recognizing everything that was happening behind the scenes that was keeping those companies alive that you were working for, the branding, the continual work, business development, certifications, insurances, cash flows, trainings, all the libelous stuff that exists inside of the other side of a business. That was the real stuff that kind of hits home pretty hard when you get going on your own. It's a great idea at the beginning, and then you recognize, geez, I got a lot of skills for putting up buildings. I understand this business, but I don't understand business.
Right. Yes. So important because a lot of folks, just like you, decide they're going to start a business because they do know the mechanics of it, right? Of putting up the building, of doing their trade. But there's so many things that go into actually running the business, like cash flow, finding work, right? Someone's got to find the work, sell the job, taking care of the contracts, making sure you get paid. How did you figure all of it out?
Well, I'd say that some of the bigger lessons that you learn, and you don't recognize this heading into business because everything's an opportunity. You're bright-eyed. You just want the work. If someone will give you the work, that's what you're here to do, and you're going to get paid to do it. I think one of the larger things that you come to understand over time is being able to say no, understanding the work that you don't want, the customers that don't suit your trajectory. Not that they're not good companies, but everybody has a specific trail that they're on, a path that they're following, the type of work, the type of business or organization that they are, and learning early on to identify the things that you do not want to do makes it a heck of a lot easier to understand the things that are advantageous to you, and then help you build a stream and a pipeline of that specific work that suits your goals and desires, the size of your company, the staff you have on, and what you intend on doing in the future.
Yeah, that's one of the hardest parts is in the beginning, you need the work, you need the money, so you're
Right.
basically taking everything because
Yeah.
you need
And
it.
you're charging a little lower. You're trying to create value for the customer. You're trying to break into the industry. You're trying to prove your worth. We found that, in historical look backs, those are likely the times you need to be charging like probably the absolute most money, as you're making the most mistakes, you're leaving the most on the table,
Oh,
you're right, all these types of things. But at the same time, if you come out the gate charging premium pricing, you're going to end up staying in that gate. So it's an interesting juxtaposition that in hindsight, looking back, you recognize, geez, I was desperately trying to write efficient and cheap quotes for people so that I could get work. But in reality, I should have been trying to increase my pricing and sell my value rather than, trying to sell a cheaper price. But there's typically, that's your quickest entree into the industry. And that's the path that most follow. And you can very quickly get it figured out. But
yeah. Yeah, wow. Hindsight's always 2020, right? You can always look back and say, "Oh, I should have done this or should have done that." But, the first few years of any business are always the hardest. And a lot of people that start a business don't always make it to the 10-year mark. So, I mean, this is a really important milestone for your company. I'm just curious if there was a specific project or season or year, like when things shifted for you from just surviving to really gaining momentum and growing.
yeah, most certainly. And I mean, there's probably these milestone, quote unquote, turning point moments for a lot of companies. And most definitely, there's an identifiable period for us right around the 5.5 year mark where we had set our sights on getting some work from a local contractor who was deeply engaged in design, build, pre-eng, had a plethora of work locally, which was easy for us to achieve logistically and be able to get some more crews running around town where I was still half on the tools and kind of half off the tools. So having the guys close to me was important for efficiency. So we had specifically targeted this general contractor and was seeking work from them. And they're a very well established and large company. So these things kind of take time. And we were very persistent and finally broke through in, I'd say it was probably 2020. We broke through with that customer, got given a couple of smaller buildings to quote unquote test us out, keep an eye on us. Things went incredibly well on all the projects, the two early projects we were given. From there, they just continued to offer us more robust, bigger square foot projects. Then ultimately that culminated in what was our biggest project to date, square footage, height, tonnage, erecting price, all of those things, most equipment, largest crew, most supervisors, most foremen. That was a really formidable job for us in that moment. That's when we were able to kind of expand out in a real and true way that rooted and held. That's when I was able to finally don my new skin as a full-on manager, promoted a couple of guys up to full field foreman, and they were left to manage the back end and the completion of that job. And from that day forward, I've had a much more hybrid role. It allowed me to, like I said, hire the foreman, provide them additional training. We were able to expand our fleet of heavy equipment, again, train more people on those new fleet items that we had purchased. And then also on that job, an interesting happenstance how these things happen. Obviously, we were nervous to take that job on, and it was very significant. And there were certain days as we were gearing up to get onto that project, we're like, geez, this is a big job for guys like us. I know we can do this, but man, this is going to be some work. And very interesting to make sure that we took on that job, and to in the end, as we were unloading all of our trucks on the second day in a sideways snowstorm,
Oh.
this woman approached me to let me know that our trucks were blocking the parking lot of the active business that we were adding an addition onto the building, and that beautiful woman ended up becoming my wife.
Oh, wow. What a story.
Yeah. So, there was that. Definitely, you could look at that as a milestone turning point moment for CMB, for a lot of my senior staff who were elevated to senior positions and still hold them today.
Yeah.
The stature for the company to accomplish a building of that size. We were building it for another local firm who I'm happy to be good friends with, the owners of that facility as well. So, and then meeting my wife in the end, it's kind of a full circle kind of Brantford and growth moment for CMB. And that was definitely the turning point that really set us off into the, indentured here to stay type of firm that we are today.
Oh, what a cool story. So,
Yeah.
when you experienced that, what changed in how you approached your business after that?
Well, most definitely having to operate from the perspective through some managers, and not being boots on the ground day to day to, acknowledge or disprove any of the things that are happening on site, and learning to learning to adapt and allow things to show themselves through time. That's been a really big one. When you're the person on site in the moment, making the decision, snapping the picture, sending the emails, you're living a very on demand, real time reality of the job site. When you've got a supervisor, a foreman running a job site, they have many responsibilities. One of them being you and their communication, back to a general manager or a project manager. But the others, and first and foremost, being the safety of the guys on the site, the safety of the materials, the end results for the end user, weather concerns. So when I need that information back from the job site in order to make critical decisions, learning to find that time and learning to have patience for the fact that people are learning and have many other responsibilities, that has been a very different approach that I've had to take over the last 3 to 5 years, most certainly, and growing each and every month that goes by, seemingly, as we introduce more people into the organization and take on jobs of a bigger scale and scope.
Yeah, that can be one of the hardest things to do is to get yourself out of the day to day so that you can run the business, right?
Yeah, well, there's a whole other day to day waiting for you in the office. Like, it's
Yeah.
just, you're not really out of the day to day. I'd say it's more of a swap of responsibilities and duties. Like, you may be out of the day to day laborious aspects of the job, and then you end up in the day to day of, say, in the office, and design, change order, project management, succession, procurement, purchasing, all these types of things. I would say, though, my training most certainly lies in the former, not the latter. So me going onto a job site and throwing some bolts and purlins and stuff, that's child's play. I can do that in my sleep. But ask me to process some crazy contract and read through the legalese of that and make good sense of it. It's like, that's not where my training lies. So for me, that's a little bit more heavy lifting often than getting to go on job site with the boys and just do what we're good at.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. So let's talk a little bit about your company and, since it's grown, what are you doing within your crews? Like because everyone is challenged with labor nowadays. So we really have to create a culture where people want to stay, right? That they see the value and the opportunity in working in construction. So what are you doing inside your company to ensure that it is the right culture and that people want to stay?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Like, this is something that, for me, is part of the genesis of CMB Erectors, is that I worked at many erecting companies, and all of them run well, very successful firms, all still in business today. I look up to a lot of these guys. They were older companies. They were run, by guys for the last 30, 40 years. And for me, there was just always this small missing part of, nothing newer has started. There aren't young people running these companies. And the companies that I do see, say, in tech or, in more burgeoning industries that are a little more attractive to the younger group coming out of school. What I see going on there culturally inside of those companies and the focuses that they have on their wellness and their staff and individualization, I always thought to myself, what is precluding construction from moving in that direction? Like of course there are certain things. You can't have a ping pong table in a sensory room on a steel building site. I understand those things,
Yes.
but we can most certainly promote a cultural reality that is more akin to health and wellness and promotion of people and their goals and achievements rather than not doing it whatsoever and putting up the flag excuse of like, well, it's construction, you gotta be tough, it's different. We really don't believe in that. And fortunately for me, I came from a place in Alberta. I luckily had taken a job after leaving the oil sands work. I had taken a local job inside of Edmonton, moved there permanently. And I was lucky enough to find myself beside what I consider to be one of the most selfless men in the metal building industry. He had hired me as a foreman. He had laid out a working plan for me to achieve my journeyman certificate, what the company was prepared to do for me if I did those things and completed my apprenticeship. And I got there and I set to work, and he did every single thing that he said he was going to do. He mentored me day in and day out. Obviously, there's mutual benefit there. I think any good type of working relationship, there's a mutual benefit, as there is in any deal or negotiation. He mentored me through and through, all the way through to the end where I was going to leave and go out on my own and open a company, of which he was my biggest supporter, my biggest proponent, and assisted me. And for the preceding 10 years has stood by my side and offered me advice, assistance in any capacity that I needed, even if it's just to talk or to commiserate over the things that only guys like him and I really deeply understand.
Yeah.
And I was blessed with that in my career. CMB entering the market experienced a rather similar outcome from a lot of the guys who came before us, who own and run erecting companies and sales and design firms. They were incredibly welcoming. They anointed our arrival onto the scene, gave us the top-down view to say, as long as we're not doing this and as long as we are doing this, we're very happy to have some competition. Don't devalue our industry, get out there and work hard. We're happy to have you. So being treated like that at the company that I came from, being received like this inside of the industry, of which I was nervous that I wouldn't be,
Right.
only reinforced and emboldened my desire and need to continue to grow other young men, other young people in this trade, and contribute back to it as much as I possibly can. CMB does that through mentorship programs, through individualization of our guys. We try to determine and understand, how does someone learn? How do they thrive? What type of person do they thrive under? Who do we need to pair them with that can complement their missing or incredible skill sets in this department? We try to identify a path, their goals. We have them fill out their goal sets on a regular basis. They're constantly reviewed if they indicate that they'd like to seek mentorship through the company. We prioritize these guys as individuals. We seek young people. We try to build young people through goal sets, individualization, and listen to their hopes, dreams, and desires. And we give people opportunity often before they deserve it. We will take the first step as a company almost every single time. And if you rise to the challenge or you rise to the occasion, we will reward that. We are most definitely an opportunity forward company. And through that, we've been able to grow a really, really strong set of young people who just continue to thrive up to and including yesterday, and seeing some young guys get out on their own for the first time and get some photos at night and just be incredibly proud and blown away at the abilities these young guys have gained over the last couple of years.
Yeah. Wow. That's fantastic. It is so important to provide that mentorship, to provide that pathway, right? That they can see that there is opportunity and growth, and that if they even wanted to start their own business like you did, that, that's met with support and it's not seen as a threat or a challenge. There's work for everybody, right?
Yeah, we've had specific meetings with guys who indicate that potential business ownership or self-employment is something that in their future may be important to them. And we aren't here to hold any of those trade secrets back. We're here to do that for everybody else as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Okay. So what's next, right? We've got the first 10 years under our belt. Yep. We've seen success. We're growing. What does the future hold for CMB?
Yeah, the $1 million question.
Yep.
What's next, right? So, when we think back to the 10 years of CMB, the coming 10 and even the from 8 to 10 have been a very significant change. And looking forward, some of the biggest things that we've been facing are this continuous growth. The company never looks the same. Every 6 months, we're hiring in a new manager. We have people managing social media. We have project managers. We have project coordinators. We're promoting field managers. And so for me, watching all those changes happen, I mean, those all used to be hats that sat right on this head. And so now to have to engage with, potentially up to 4 to 6 people, depending on the day, to get a company-wide picture and an understanding of priorities and cash flows and these types of things. That change has been, it's exciting, and I'm very proud of it. I'm incredibly proud to empower all of our team here and see the great work that they're able to do in each of their roles, far better than when I was wearing 6 hats on my head. That's for
Right.
sure. But those changes, I mean, yeah, once in a while you feel a little bit of discomfort. Things used to happen this way, or things used to happen that way, or I had intrinsic knowledge of each and everything that was happening, and that helped me, sleep at night. So working through those things and developing some, coping skills to say, hey, everybody's very busy, man. They're not just here to, satisfy the question of the day for you. So setting up those frameworks, that structure, the organizational chart, the direct reporting, those types of things, like those have been some of the biggest changes and what I'd, quote unquote, call challenges, or what we're up against right now, and what we're in the middle of working through and getting set for our next 10 years, and trying to have that structure set in a much bigger way to take on, these much bigger jobs and more robust contracts that just continue to come out of the pre-engineered metal building industry.
Yeah. We'll have to have you back in 5 years when you're celebrating your 15, and then we'll reflect on this conversation and see where you are. But I want to make sure that we touch on, you and I met at the MBCEA
Yep.
annual conference and expo, and that's the Metal Building Contractors and Erectors Association.
Yep.
And I want to just have you touch on the role that belonging to the industry association, how has that helped you find success? And obviously it has, because you are one of the folks who just started a new chapter in Canada, right? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, we are. We were lucky enough. National saw the need that we had been expressing for a couple of years in regards to the volume of work that we have here, the population center that we have in Southern Ontario, and they, took a look at that and said, yeah, we tend to agree. We have enough going on up there that I think it's high time that we got a chapter in. You guys are going to have to, organize that and do the work, and this is how you attach to national, et cetera, et cetera. So a couple of other keen, younger, again, individuals who see the value in the bigger picture in organizing this trade in a bigger way, setting some standards, and getting an organization in place that can bring the entire group together for the betterment of the industry. We were able to achieve that. Did our first board call out at our first meeting. Had lots of really strong industry proponents step forward to be on the board. We've got a wonderful president of a large erecting firm. He's been a big proponent of getting the MBCEA up here into Canada. I've stepped forward myself as the vice president to assist the president in all of the early activities in regards to recruitment and scholarships and events and planning. And we just held a very successful golf tournament, our inaugural golf tournament up at Blue Springs in Milton, which was a resounding success. We had sold out all of our tickets, even had to add a couple. So next year, that'll be an even more can't miss event for us. But one thing that it's really brought to me after running the business for 10 years, after doing anything for 10 years, you can maybe almost approach like a burnout stage or a plateau stage where you're not unhappy. It's not as exciting as it once was. When you start a business, it's very exciting every day, all the things that are happening. You arrive at a decade and it starts to become, kind of your day to day. This is the reality that you come to get used to. Introducing something like the MBCEA, bringing together all of the erectors, watching all of the erectors kind of drop the shield and everybody participate with each other with positive mind, positive outlook, with the goal of growth of the pre-eng metal building industry as a whole, which will benefit all of us. A high tide rises all boats. So seeing that happen, when I came up in the industry, it was a little more cutthroat. It wasn't so intertwined. There wasn't as much help, lend a hand to your neighbor, lend a hand to your friend. There wasn't so much of that. It was a little bit more every man for himself. And I operated in the first few years with that mentality. Joining the MBCEA completely tore the lid off of that for me and really, really showed me that this industry is filled with a group of like-minded individuals who are not greedy, who are not out for their own personal ends, that everyone recognizes that a strong industry with strong standards, well-trained group, and consistency, there's going to be enough meat on the bone for absolutely everybody. That has been one of the most emboldening things to happen, I would say, in the last 5 years for me in the pre-eng metal building industry. The energy it's given me, and this is extra work. It's quite a bit of extra unpaid work to participate and be on the board in the meetings and plan things, but it certainly doesn't feel like work. It is one of the best things that most certainly has ever happened to CMB. I know it's the best thing that's happened to the pre-eng metal building industry, and I can't speak for the other erectors, but I do have their sentiments, and everybody is incredibly happy. And this has been a real turning point, and we are just getting started with the MBCA. Like we just announced our first scholarships from some profits that we were able to generate over the year through events and everything, which is just, for me, for a person like me, going back to talking about mentorship and growth through the industry. You know, I pushed myself through my MBSE training at the Northern Alberta Institute for Technology. And had I not done that, I can tell you right now, I wouldn't have had the confidence to start CMB Erectors. Achieving that journeyman certificate after my mentorship, opening my business, and now joining the MBCEA. These are all the four pillars that are really required, I believe, in order for someone to continue to bite off into that industry and continue to give back to that industry continuously. And the MBCEA is just a vehicle in which to do that. Before, we could have all the ideas in the world, but we weren't organized. We could do things internally inside of CMB. They weren't necessarily reflected at other erectors in the province because we're all private. So the MBCA bringing us under that one umbrella is now finally opening the door to standardized training, AC 478 designations, and allowing companies like ours and whomever else wants to go through the process and check all the boxes and go through all the audits to receive, say, something like an AC 478 designation. This allows the opportunity to the people who are willing to put in the effort and the investment to designate themselves as an upper echelon erector, as someone that's pushing for standardization, someone that's pushing a quality program, somebody that's really invested in the long-term durability, viability, and safe building of pre-eng metal buildings.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's so great to hear, like I can hear the passion in your voice when you're talking about, this being that next step. And it's so exciting. I encourage everyone to go on metalcoffeeshop.com and check out MBCEA. They have a full directory there with links to their website, information on, hey, you might want to start a chapter in your area. And Clinton, you probably would be ready to pick up the phone and provide some advice and suggestions for anyone interested, right?
Oh, most certainly. Because I mean, like I said, when it first came around, like I knew of the MBCA, but I knew it to be heavily American, and I knew it would be potentially difficult to get them to agree to a chapter. But when the industry, gets collectively together and has a goal and a focus, and they go out and try to achieve that goal, it's amazing what can happen and the benefit that flows after the fact. Like it's been, like I said, we're just getting started, and I couldn't be more excited for the MBCA. This is exactly not only what I needed, what CMB needed, what this industry needed, but it's what we all needed.
Yeah. Well, congratulations all around.
Thank you.
Exciting. Thank you so much for sharing your story and being here today.
Yeah. Well, thank you for giving us the time to share our story. Much appreciated a platform like this.
Yeah. And thank you everybody out there for listening. We encourage you to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform because we want to see you on a future episode of MetalCast. We'll see you next time. Bye.